Hey, heads up, sit and goes. We're back. Now onto the second question here by Zorzak. Sorry if I butchered that. Your question is, what do I think is the #1 cause for tilt among heads up players? How to solve this problem and become better mentally? I don't want to oversimplify the complexity of heads up play by picking out the #1 cause of tilt, because I don't think it is. I think the #1 cause that is more unique to heads up play is taking things personally, and there's a lot more revenge tilt among heads up players than there are in full ring or six max games. But I think that has to do with the personal nature. It's much more combative. It's mano y mano, one against one. So I think because of that, it becomes much more personal, and it feels that way when you lose, and thus feels like it's that particular player that's taking money from you or that's beating you, and it's very hard to deal with. But I think in general, heads up play exaggerates any other mental game leaks, including tilt. So running bad tilt, injustice tilt, mistake tilt, hate losing tilt, entitlement tilt, desperation tilt, on top of revenge tilt, are all part of heads up play. But I think revenge tilt seems to be the one that is most characteristic to heads up play. And how to solve this issue. I mean, the entire book is designed around how to solve these problems. Chapter 4 outlines a very, very clear strategy for that. And the reason I mention that, not because I'm trying to get you to buy the book, but really because I'm just saying that these are not simple things to solve, that I can give you the entire picture with a few-minute video. But I think you want to start with really understanding why you're taking it personally, or why you're tilting in the way that you are. So the #1 thing you've got to start with is a really good understanding or assessment of the problem. So after your sessions, start taking notes down about the things that you're saying in your head, the things that you're reacting to at the table. Really just get a big, essentially tilt profile, where you have a good description of the problem, what's causing the tilt, how you're reacting to it, and then from that you can begin to better understand some of the underlying flaws that are creating that reaction. The mistake that a lot of people make is that tilt is caused by thinking. You're thinking in the wrong way. Well, tilt is originally caused by flaws in unconscious competence, meaning flaws in this hardwired, ingrained way of viewing poker. And an example of that would be, hating to lose. You have a reaction to losing that is so strong, and then it gets exaggerated by, thinking about how much you hate losing, or by thinking about this player that now has your money, and it sort of steamrolls from that. But the tilt begins with flaws in your unconscious competence, and so that's what you really want to be identifying. And then as far as containing it during your sessions, there's a 4-part strategy that I outline in the book. Begins with recognition. So if you're going to control tilt, you have to be able to recognize the earliest signs of tilt in real time as it's happening, before it becomes too big of a problem. If you recognize tilt when you're already tilting, you're literally fighting upstream to try to regain control of your mind, and that's very, very difficult. But if you are able to recognize it early, then you have the ability to kind of beat it back down without it affecting your mindset too much. And you're probably going to have to continue to do that throughout the session. But if you have to be able to catch it early, because once your emotions rise too high, your brain is sort of beginning to malfunction, and you're not able to think as clearly, just as a function of what happens to the brain when emotions are too high. So recognition is key. Take a couple deep breaths just to sort of create a little separation from that reaction, and then you want to be injecting logic. Now, the injecting of logic is basically your opportunity to think in a way that is correcting the underlying flaw that's caused the original emotion. So if we're talking about taking it personally, maybe it's that you just can't stand to have somebody think that they're better than you. Well, what would be the correction of that? What would be something that you could say to yourself that would help you to correct that flaw in the moment? An example of that might be, let me think here. that you just need to be focused on how you're playing and not worry about what other people think about you. And easier said than done, right? But if you force yourself to be focused on your game, then over time it will get easier to have that be true and not care as much about what others think. Again, that's probably a surface level answer at this point, but you want to dig down, and that may help you in the moment. And then the fourth step, so we've got recognition, deep breath, injecting logic. The fourth step is what I call a strategic reminder. Basically, you're reviewing the tactics. This is just pure poker at this point. The tactics that would tend to go, that you would tend to make some mistakes about. So we're talking about forgetting to put people in ranges. Your actual decision-making process kind of breaks down. So you want to be actually writing down on a note card, on a Word document, on a sticky note, somewhere where you can actually see it and read it, the things that you need to remind yourself of, how you're going to make good decisions. Again, what information do you need to know? What mistakes might you tend to make? What factors might you tend to forget about? Keep track of all of that, because your mind is malfunctioning at this point, and you want to have something very clear that you can read that will allow you to know exactly what you need to be focused on. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if it doesn't.